How is a dormant, like completely forgotten piece of internet infrastructure from 1991 suddenly the biggest story in the AI economy?
It's pretty wild, actually.
Right. Today, our mission is to explore how the fundamental economic handshake of the internet, I mean, the very foundation of how the web has operated for decades, is actively breaking down. And we're going to look at how a tiny, obscure error code might actually be the only thing that can fix it.
Yeah, it is a massive structural shift. And we are pulling today from a genuinely fascinating piece of source material. It's an article from Tech Reader magazine, published in July of 2026, written by Aaron Rose.
The 402 problem.
Exactly, titled The 402 Problem. And Rose lays out this reality that is playing out behind the scenes of basically every single website you visit.
Which is exactly why you, listening to this, need to care about what we are discussing today.
Yeah.
Because whether you are prepping for a tech strategy meeting or trying to stay ahead of the curve on digital economics, or, I don't know, if you're just insanely curious about how the articles and videos you consume every single day are actually funded, this hidden crisis changes absolutely everything about the websites you visit.
It really does. It changes the whole future of the information you have access to.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to start by looking at the before and after of how the internet actually makes money. I mean, to understand why this ancient line of code is suddenly so critical, we have to understand the specific mechanics of what is breaking.
Right. And to understand what is breaking, we really have to look at the original handshake. For 30 years, the open web has operated on this unspoken, unwritten deal.
The old bargain.
Yeah, the old bargain. Think about it from the perspective of a publisher. They spend time, money, effort to produce content. An investigative article, a recipe, a complex technical guide.
What?
Then search engines index that content, and they send human readers over to the publisher's website.
So the search engine acts as the map, and the user just follows it to the destination.
Precisely. And once that human reader arrives, ad networks monetize their attention. The publisher gets paid, the reader gets the information for free, and the search engine provides a valuable service.
A win-win-win.
Essentially, yeah. Now, was it a perfect system? No. I mean, Rose points out in the article that this ad-driven economy created plenty of its own distortions.
Oh yeah, the clickbait.
Exactly. We all lived through the era of clickbait and those race-to-the-bottom content farms. But it worked because it operated on a recognizable exchange of value. The underlying logic was solid traffic meant humans, and human attention meant value was flowing back to the people who actually created the content.
It was a continuous feedback loop. But then, as the source material lays out, the AI crawlers arrived. And they didn't just participate in that loop, they effectively short-circuited it.
They bypassed it entirely.
Yeah, and the statistics Aaron Rose provides here are just staggering. We are talking about AI crawlers hitting publishers with upwards of 100,000 plus requests per crawl cycle.
It's massive.
Just a relentless industrial scale consumption of data.
And that industrial scale is where the old bargain falls apart, primarily because of the difference in what we call downstream conditions.
Downstream conditions, right?
Yeah, so when a human visits a site, they create an economic wake. A human reader might only stay on a page for, say, 30 seconds. But in that 30 seconds, they load the ads. They generate a measurable impression.
Maybe they click an affiliate link or something.
Right, maybe they subscribe to a newsletter.
Yeah.
But even if they do none of that, their browser is dropping cookies and generating metadata that the publisher uses to prove to advertisers, hey, look, real people are looking at this.
So the human is participating in the economy just by occupying the digital space.
Exactly. But an AI crawler is a completely different entity. It visits that exact same page, and it extracts the raw utility of the text. It parses the information, maps the context, and then routes that pure data back to its own system to answer a user's prompt.
So the downstream user gets their answer perfectly synthesized.
Yes.
But what does the publisher get? I'm guessing they don't get the ad impressions.
No, they get absolutely nothing except a line of text in a server log entry.
Wait, pause right there. Just for someone who isn't, managing a website backend on a daily basis, what exactly is a server log entry in this context? Like, what is the publisher actually seeing?
Oh, sure. It is literally just a raw text file on the publisher's computer that says, essentially, at 2:04 p.m., this specific IP address requested to download the text of this specific article.
And that's it.
That's it. It doesn't load the visual page. It doesn't load the ads. It triggers 0 analytic scripts. The content was entirely consumed, but that consumption produced absolutely 0 economic value for the creator. It's just a massive structural asymmetry.
Man, I was trying to visualize this asymmetry earlier, and it made me think of it this way. It's like someone walking into your bakery, tasting all your bread, memorizing your exact recipes, and then opening a machine next door that gives your exact bread away for free.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, because you're still baking the bread, you are paying for the flour and the labor, but the person eating the final product never even sees your storefront. All you have is a signature in your guest book proving the machine's inventor walked through your door.
That is a highly accurate way to conceptualize it. And, the machine next door isn't even telling people where the recipe came from. Rose notes that some AI systems do attempt to provide little citation links.
Yeah, I've seen those tiny little numbers at the bottom.
Right. But the dominant model that is emerging, and frankly the one users seem to vastly prefer, is an AI that just answers the question completely right there in the chat interface. The user never needs to click through.
So if the bakery is bleeding out, how do we fix it? Well, we look at the actual architecture of the web. Anyone who has spent more than 5 minutes on the internet knows the classic HTTP error code. You click a broken link, and you get 404-page not found.
It's ubiquitous.
It really is. But the underlying architecture of the internet actually has an entire catalog of these status codes. And there was one in particular we need to talk about, the 402 code.
This is where I totally geek out, because what's fascinating here is the sheer foresight of the people who originally built the web. The HTTP status codes have been part of the internet's fundamental infrastructure since the early 1990s.
Right.
And right there, in the original 1991 specification written by the pioneers of the web, they reserved the 402 code. It stands for payment required.
Wait, really? They anticipated this in 1991?
They did. They knew that eventually there might need to be a standardized way for servers to negotiate financial transactions directly, machine to machine. But for 35 years, it just sat there, completely dormant.
Just gathering digital dust?
Exactly. It was a digital switch that was installed but never wired to anything. And the reason it sat unused for over 3 decades is exactly what we just discussed. The web never actually needed it. You didn't need a code to demand direct payment because the human attention economy and all those advertising trackers paid the bills indirectly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The ad model is failing because AI doesn't look at ads and it doesn't trigger tracking scripts. So enter a company called Cloudflare.
Right.
Cloudflare is this massive web infrastructure company. They sit like a protective shield in front of millions of websites. And according to the Tech Reader piece, Cloudflare recently announced something called the Monetization Gateway.
Yes, and this is huge.
Right. This gateway takes that dormant 1991 code, the 402, and finally puts it to work. For the first time at scale, a website server can look at an incoming request from an AI agent, and instead of handing over the article for free, it can respond with a price tag.
It is incredibly elegant. When the AI crawler knocks on the door, the Cloudflare server intercepts it and essentially says, I see you are not a human browser. I am throwing a 402 error, payment required.
Wow.
And then the AI agent has to make a programmatic choice. It can pay the requested microtransaction, it can move on to a different site, or it can just be turned away.
Okay, I get the concept of throwing up a toll booth, but AI bots don't carry credit cards. How does a piece of software actually pay a server in real time? Like, how does that mechanism even work?
Yeah, so it relies on automated machine-to-machine digital wallets. When the AI company sends its crawler out, it outfits that crawler with an API key tied to a funded account.
Okay.
So when the crawler hits the 402 payment required signal, the two servers engage in a cryptographic handshake. The publisher server says, this article costs 1/10 of a cent to ingest.
And the crawler just agrees.
Well, the AI crawler checks its parameterized budget, instantly signs a digital micropayment, and hands over a cryptographic token. The publisher server verifies the token and releases the text. All of this negotiation and payment happens programmatically in milliseconds. The 402 code finally has a job.
That is just a brilliant technical fix. But as Aaron Rose points out, this isn't just a fun anecdote about an old piece of code. It is a massive economic signal. It means the foundational assumptions of the web have shifted so drastically that publishers are being forced to completely rewire how they interact with the internet.
Yeah, having this 402 available is a breakthrough. But if we shift our perspective back to the actual publishers, the creators, the authors, the journalists, we realize that having a new tool doesn't magically solve the broader existential crisis.
Right, because the old world of the fuzzy, ad-driven handshake is just gone.
It's gone. So what do creators actually do in this new reality? Rose outlines 3 choices facing anyone who publishes content on the open web today, and frankly, none of them are particularly appealing.
Let's go through these because this is the strategic nightmare every media company is facing right now. Choice number one, leave the door open. You just keep publishing exactly as you always have. You don't block the AI crawlers, and you essentially cross your fingers.
The optimistic approach, yeah. You hope that the AI companies will voluntarily develop referral behaviors that somehow restore the old traffic model. You are trusting that corporations, whose entire multi-billion-dollar value proposition is based on synthesizing content so users don't have to leave their platform, will suddenly decide to start sending users away.
Which sounds insane when you say it out loud.
As the article dryly notes, history offers us very little reason to be confident that will happen.
Yeah, hoping a tech monopoly will voluntarily give away its primary advantage seems like a terrible business plan. So that pushes publishers to choice number two, lock the door. You use technical tools to block the AI crawlers entirely. You say, no, you cannot scrape my site. But how do you actually enforce that? How do you, physically lock a website?
Well, there are a few mechanisms. The most common is a file called robots.txt. It's a simple text file sitting on a website's server that basically acts as a do not enter sign. You can write rules in it saying, hey, OpenAI crawler, hey, Googlebot, please do not read these pages.
But wait, isn't that just an honor system? What stops a bot from just ignoring the sign?
It is largely an honor system for the major players, but you're right, rogue bots ignore it all the time, which is why publishers also have to use rate limiting.
Rate limiting.
Yeah, that is a more aggressive mechanism where the server acts like a bouncer. If it notices a single IP address trying to download 1,000 pages a minute, the server forcefully cuts the connection. Between robots.txt and rate limiting, the goal is preservation. You are trying to preserve your content exclusively for human readers who find you through traditional search engines.
But I want to challenge the strategy because Rose points out a massive logical trap here. I mean, wait, if you lock the door to preserve your content for human search-driven traffic, but AI answers are actively displacing those human search queries entirely, aren't you just locking yourself inside an empty room?
Yeah.
If everyone is using an AI chatbot to find baking recipes instead of a traditional search engine, and you block the AI from reading your recipe, the human audience might not even be there anymore to find you.
That is the exact reality check. You've identified the fatal flaw in the lock the door strategy. If the total volume of traditional search queries plummets, your slice of the traffic pie shrinks drastically, even if you are the only one left in the pie tin. Your bakery is completely secure, but the street outside is just deserted.
Wow. So if hoping for traffic is naive and locking the door is practically suicidal, publishers are backed into a corner where they literally have to invent a new way to demand money. Which brings us to the third choice. Charge at the door. This is the Cloudflare 402 approach. You treat AI access not as a free rider problem to be tolerated or blocked, but as a licensed transaction.
Logically, this is the most financially coherent response. It assigns direct value to the extraction. But of course, it comes with its own massive hurdles. First, it requires a level of technical infrastructure that most independent publishers, bloggers, and small newsrooms simply do not have, which is why a massive entity like Cloudflare stepping in is so significant. But second, it assumes that the AI operators will actually choose to pay the toll.
Right. If you demand payment, what stops the AI crawler from just rejecting the 402 error, turning around and scraping a cheaper, maybe less accurate source of information?
Nothing. Nothing stops them. And that is the tragedy of it. None of these choices are good because they are all reactive. They are desperate responses to a scenario that absolutely nobody designing the web ever anticipated. Nobody ever designed an internet where the primary consumers of information weren't people.
If publishers are backed into this corner, it points to a much larger macro-level crisis for the internet as a whole. Now, if you talk to the AI industry, they have a very standard defense for all of this. They will tell you that crawling public websites is entirely legal. They will point out that you can opt out using robots.txt if you want to. And they are very quick to remind everyone that the traditional advertising economy was already dying long before ChatGPT showed up.
This raises an important question, because while all three of those defenses from the AI industry are technically true, they conveniently ignore the core trauma of this shift, the absolute invisibility of the extraction.
The invisibility, what do you mean by that?
Think about the previous era of the internet, the social media era. During that time, platforms like Facebook and Twitter were also extracting immense value from publishers. They were aggregating attention and keeping people scrolling their own feeds. But that extraction was visible. Publishers could look at their analytics dashboards and actively measure the damage.
Ah, I see.
They could see their referral traffic dropping month over month, They could watch the patterns. They knew exactly where the users were going.
So they could see exactly how much money they were losing to the platforms.
Exactly. But with AI, the extraction is fundamentally opaque. When an AI crawler ingests an article, it doesn't store it in a traditional database where a publisher could theoretically track how often it's referenced. It feeds that text into a neural net.
A neural net. So it's not just a fancy filing cabinet.
Not at all. Think of a neural net like baking a cake. You put the flour, the eggs, and the sugar into the batter, and you bake it. Once the cake is baked, you can never extract that specific egg or that specific cup of sugar again. The ingredients have been completely dissolved into the final product.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when an AI ingests an article, the facts, the tone, and the context are dissolved into mathematical weights and probabilities. A publisher today has absolutely no way of knowing how many times their specific hard-won reporting contributed to a synthesized answer on an AI platform. You cannot audit how many users receive that synthesized answer instead of visiting your website. You are completely blind to how your work is being utilized.
Which totally explains why the 402 command is so profound. It's not just about getting a fraction of a cent. It is a desperate structural attempt to take an invisible transaction and force it out into the open. It's a way of saying, I know you were taking my flour for your cake, and we need to negotiate right now at the door before it disappears.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Aaron Rose argues brilliantly that AI is not actually a brand new pressure on the publishing model. It is simply the absolute, inevitable conclusion of a process that has been underway for a decade. We have spent 10 years watching tech platforms aggregate attention away from individual creators. AI is just that exact same process applied at a scale so massive and with a technology so opaque that it removes any remaining ambiguity about who holds the power.
Which forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question about the founding ideals of the internet itself. There was always this hacker ethos, this foundational belief that information wants to be free.
Yeah.
And for a long time, the advertising model, however flawed it was, actually funded that freedom.
It did.
It subsidized the cost of journalism, of research, and of creation, so the end user didn't have to pull out their wallet for every article. If that ad model completely collapses because AI removes the human eyeballs from the equation, what happens to that ideal?
The ideal fractures. Because you can have free access to information, but the production of high-quality information is never free. It costs time, it costs deep expertise, and it costs money. The article points out that people will always write and publish for reasons beyond revenue, right? Passionate hobbyists will still exist.
Sure.
But the economics that sustain full-time content production, we're talking about deep investigative journalism, complex technical writing, specialized expert analysis, all of that depends on a functioning revenue model. If the content is consumed by machines without the human consumer ever reaching the creator, the financial incentive to produce that high-level work is completely destroyed.
It's an existential threat to the profession of writing and reporting as we know it.
It is. The 402 response from Cloudflare isn't just a clever software update. It is a massive, flashing warning signal that the implicit social contract of the internet is officially under review. We are transitioning away from the handshake. And whatever replaces it, whether it's cryptographic micropayments driven by these 402 codes, or complex licensing regimes between big tech and big media, or even highly tiered internet access where you have to pay a subscription just to get past the gate, that new mechanism is going to define the structure of online publishing for the next generation.
It's unavoidable.
The technology is going to keep advancing. The open question is whether the economics can adapt fast enough to keep the web alive.
So what does this all mean? It means the internet you browse every single day is being radically rebuilt while you are actively scrolling through it. The foundational architecture is being rerouted, and the people who built the web are frantically relying on a dormant code from 1991 to try and negotiate a completely new reality.
Recognizing the shift in that underlying architecture is the crucial first step.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on what we just discussed about the decline of full-time writing. If the traditional ad model dies completely, and if deep investigative journalism or vital technical writing cannot be sufficiently funded by these fractions of a cent AI micropayments, what happens to your daily information diet? Do we risk stepping into a future where the only free information left on the internet is either low-quality amateur content or highly funded corporate PR designed specifically to push a bias? Next time you read a brilliant, free, deeply researched article online, ask yourself who is really paying for this right now, and more importantly, will they still be able to pay for it tomorrow? That unseen handshake that built the web might just be slipping away, and we're all going to have to decide what the new deal looks like. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.